great to be with all of you today. Thank you for joining us. We've had about 150 people sign up to join us for this important conversation. I'm Dustin Minocha, founder and CEO of Nearpeer, and we're really honored to have Bridget and Emily today present on this important topic of well-being and belonging and what matters and how to implement it. Without further ado, let me introduce both of them, Dr. Bridget Yuhas and Dr. Emily Hoffman.
Hi, folks. My name is Bridget Yuhas, and I am Dean for Student Health and Wellbeing at Butler University.
Hi, my name is Emily Hoffman. I'm the Mindful College Connections Mental Health and Wellness Educator, and I am a licensed occupational therapist.
Great to have both of you. I'll share a few words about Nearpeer, and then I will turn it over to both of you for this important conversation. Just a bit about Nearpeer for those who are new. All of our work revolves around helping to build belonging and connection for students so that we can help support them in being more committed and resilient and successful. And that's why we so admire the work that Bridget and Emily do as well. And we're honored to both partner with Butler University and DePauw in our work together. We're an organization that is really focused on helping to build belonging and connection and community. And one way that we do it that's a bit different is we flip the digital model in a way upside down. We focus on helping connect all students, and we usually start with incoming students to help build what we call belonging before arriving, but do that to focus on one-on-one connections, a kind of interaction that more reflects how students as human beings build relationships in real life, which is often one by one as they get to know people. And that also is what helps create a momentum. So when they close their phone or turn off their laptop, they actually are in the world with real relationships as opposed to just engaging with a platform. We serve all students with the greatest impact on first-gen students and also introverted students who are often left out of traditional social media and many of the sort of group chat-oriented aspects. We're so honored to be with Butler and DePauw today, and we also serve a whole variety of institutions from small and mid-sized private colleges to large public universities, as you see here, to large public urban commuter universities. So a whole breadth of institutions to help support their students, often from initial enrollment and through retention and well-being. And for those that are focused more on the student experience, to also support those particular priority populations. Maybe they're out of state, Pell eligible, international students, and others that may have special additional needs and support to build connection. We're really committed to results. We really believe strongly that this is such important work that we really have to know if we're doing it right and if we're making an impact. And for those of you that haven't seen this as an example of a Forbes article about our work in the Cal State system, where a 12,000 student randomized trial was conducted really for the system to get a sense of our work and impact, which also allowed us to see the impact, as the quote mentions there, both boosting new enrollment and having about equal impact on retention. And that was really from the momentum that students have when they start feeling that they do belong and having actual relationships and connections with peers and with support teams as well. And finally, just a few stats that we're seeing in the flash surveys that we do for students who are in Nearpeer. 90% of Nearpeer users we've seen have reported feeling nervous about attending college, not a surprise. And a majority of them reported feeling most nervous about finding a friend. And I think maybe that's not a surprise for some, it may be, but it's the kind of thing that often can be so hard to solve, particularly when students aren't even on campus yet, to help them build connection. And that's part of the work that we do every day. We also support orientation and transition as part of supporting new students. And so in addition to supporting all students in that work, about 1 in 10 reported that Nearpeer was actually the most helpful intervention amongst that whole orientation and transition to help fill the cracks and serve students who may be on the edges. And then similarly, while we know that a majority of new students appreciate finding connection with students who they share the most in common with. About 9% also said that the most meaningful friendships that they made through Nearpeer were with people they didn't think they had things in common with. So we help bring students together and how we match and connect those students to help create a more enriching experience. And the last one, and Butler and DePaul have been great pioneers in this work with us as well, is that 59% of students who use Nearpeer said the platform is also equally helpful in connecting not just students with each other, because that's what draws them into our platform and helps drive engagement, but then using that to connect with other campus resources, whether it be financial aid programs, housing, basic needs programs, a whole host of other things that may be on students' minds. So then all really interesting findings. And then one last piece, which happens to be exactly a week from today, we have a webinar for anyone interested. I will send a link out with Dr. Frank Ross, Stephanie Hannenberg, and Aaron Lindberg. Stephanie's former president of the American College Health Association, and just a great set of panelists around the role of belonging, specifically around recruitment and retention. And for anyone who would like to join, we'll send the link as well. And with that, I'm excited to turn it over to Emily and Bridget. Take it away.
We're just pulling up our slides here, so give us just a second. Thank you.
Sure. And I'll just say from a housekeeping, for anyone who has questions, feel free to use the Q&A and ask any questions, and then they will be either answered during the session or at the end as well.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Dustin, for having Emily and I here to speak today. We're really excited to talk to all of you about some of the work that we've been doing both at Butler University, where I am, and at DePaul University, where Emily is. So I think we can just jump right in, if that's okay with you, Emily. All right. So I will kind of kick us off a little bit with an overview of what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the research that we've done that connects well-being initiatives and supports with student belonging. And part of the work that we have done with that is through the Student Wellbeing Institutional Support Survey, or SWIS. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that and why we do it and why we think it's important. But the real star of the show here is Emily and her work at DePaul. Emily gets to work with folks all across campus and work with students all across campus to really implement some of this research and take the data and turn it into action that really supports her students. So that's kind of the game plan here. I'm going to start actually by asking you all a couple of questions. So Emily, if we can move ahead one, please. Please feel free to comment in the chat or the Q&A. We would love to know who out there has a well-being program or a framework or an office or a person or half-time person who does the well-being work on your campus. And if you feel comfortable sharing a little bit about some challenges that you might have been facing while implementing well-being initiatives on your campus, or even just trying to start a well-being program or initiative in the first place. So if you wouldn't mind kind of thinking about that and putting that in the chat or the Q&A, we'll kind of work to address some of those things, hopefully by what we already have planned here, but also we can kind of come back and address some of those things as we go along as well. So why focus on well-being, right? What are we doing here? Why are you here listening to this presentation? We hope to give you some tools to use on your own campus, not only in terms of data and interventions, as Emily is going to talk about, but really being able to make the case to those decision makers and resource holders on your campus as to why they should invest in well-being as well. So I'm going to go through a little bit of what has worked for us at Butler in terms of the research case for investing in student well-being. So the good news is that a lot of the things that you all probably feel and know intuitively about student well-being are also borne out in the research. So the things here that are on the left side of the slide, when those things are increased through interventions, the things on the right side also go up. So this is sort of our ROI slide. So we know that when sleep is a part of our students' life and they're getting healthy sleep, that can really affect their GPA in a positive manner. When they are able to eat nutritious food, that also affects their academics. When they're able to interact with mindfulness programs and really take those skills to heart, they can engage with their stress management in a better way. Their overall health is improved. When their social well-being is improved, as we already talked about a little bit with Dustin at the top, they're engaged more, they're retained more. Interacting with people who are not like them also helps with their emotional well-being and satisfaction at the institution. And when we're able to increase that sense of belonging, overall retention, GPA, all of those things on the right also go up. So it's really a great way to present to your resource holders or decision makers that the return on investment in well-being benefits both the individual students and the institution overall. So it's really kind of a win-win across the board. So one thing that also helped us here at Butler was to talk about how the conversation about well-being is really a national conversation. Our leading professional associations came together to create an interassociation definition of well-being. So that's NASPA and NERSA and ACHA came together to define what well-being looks like in the higher ed space. And almost every other association has also signed on to the definition of well-being and also a commitment to using student well-being or using well-being to help with student success. So it's really a national conversation, and it's proven out with the literature as well. And it's also an international conversation. So this is not a fly-by-night conversation, right? Institutions all across the United States and across the world are investing in student well-being. The Okanagan Charter, which many of you are probably familiar with, was written in 2015 in Canada. And it really has two main challenges: to embed health into all aspects of campus culture across administration, operations, and academic mandates, so truly across the entire culture of the institution, but also for institutions to lead health promotion action and collaboration locally and globally. So not just focus on our own campus communities, but look towards the communities that we are situated within, and really support those communities, because when the area around campus thrives, campus also thrives, and vice versa. They're interconnected. So really looking to be partners with the communities in which we're located to help increase well-being across all of the spheres that we touch. So that is some research, that is some national associations and some international conversations that are all going on right now. And those things were really helpful for us at Butler to talk to cabinet and to talk to our vice presidents and say, hey, this is something that is really important that's going on nationally and internationally. We want to be a part of that. So if we could go ahead here. At Butler, we have a framework for student well-being that has 8 dimensions. It's called Be You, Be Well. So when I joined Butler in 2018, our vice president at the time asked me to come up with a way to measure Be You, Be Well. Is it working? Do students know what it is? Are they making behavioral changes based on what they learned? That kind of thing. So as an assessment person, I looked around to see what was already available, right? I didn't want to recreate the wheel unless I needed to. And I wanted to see what was best practice out there in the world. So there are plenty of individual student assessments, as I bet you all know. And I'm sure that you do all of these things on your campus to one degree or another. But there are assessments about how students are engaging on campus. How do they spend their time? What are they doing? How well do they feel like they belong on campus? There are all kinds of assessments about mental health, physical health, well-being, interactions across difference at the individual level. Like, what is each individual student doing, right? And that gives us a lot of good information. There are also institutional climate assessments. And so that like zooms up and asks about what is going on at the university as a whole, not just individual students and their experiences, which are obviously important, but what is going on with the campus as a whole. And those cover everything from diversity, equity and inclusion, sexual misconduct, the academic climate, all kinds of great things. But where I was at the time was realizing that there wasn't anything specifically about student well-being and how well institutions were doing at supporting students in all of the different realms of their well-being. So I wanted to ask not how well each individual student was doing, because that was already pretty well covered, but how well are we doing as institutions at supporting our students? And that's why I developed SWIS, because it asks students how well we're doing. And the great thing about that is that we get immediately actionable information about where students feel like we're doing a good job in supporting them and where they would like a little bit more support. So then on our side, as practitioners, we're able to more efficiently direct our resources and our time to those areas where students are telling us they really need more support. So just a little bit of an overview here. It's kind of like mid-afternoon here on the East Coast, and that's not always the best time to talk about data. We're getting a little bit past lunchtime, and it feels a little sleepy in here sometimes at that time. So I won't go into data for a super long stretch here, but I did want to share with you some basic results from SWIS that really ties into what Emily's going to talk about and also what Dustin talked about in terms of students being able to feel supported, feel like part of campus, even before they arrive. So we found out that some areas of strength nationally, and this is from just this past year of administrations, well-being and housing was a strength. The actual physical environment of campus, which is so important, and sometimes we overlook it, but it really have students having a place to engage and be outdoors safely is really important. Students were perceiving an institutional emphasis on DEI, and this is interesting because I asked these questions before a lot of the political and legislative changes have happened across the country, and so I'm really interested to go back and see how these impressions that students are telling us about have changed just with time and the changing climate. Students are also telling us that their instructors are supportive of them and challenging their thinking and exploring new ideas, which I think is so important because that's really the bread and butter of going to a college or university, is to be challenged and think about those new ideas. So students are seeing that. They also feel supported academically outside of the classroom with things like tutoring and prerequisite courses being available. And they also feel like they do have opportunities to engage on campus. So that is really good to hear. Sometimes we hear students say, oh, there's nothing to do, but we know there is so much to do. And so a lot of students really responded to this and said that they had the opportunity to meet other students and engage in activities. So that's great. Next. Of course, with any survey or any study, research, there are always things that we could take as action items, right? And so here's just a quick overview of some of the things nationally that we saw as areas of opportunity. And the first one right out of the gate was our students aren't always able to meet their basic needs. For us at Butler, this was actually a surprise. We thought that our students were doing really well in being able to meet their basic needs, but between 25 and 30% of our students were either sometimes or never able to meet their basic needs of food, clothing, housing, school expenses, and things of that nature. And so those were really a big eye opener for us. And I think the important thing that we learned here is that you can't assume, right? You have to ask the question and find out what's really going on with your students. So this data helped us to be able to make the case that we needed a food pantry on campus. And we have been able to do that. And it's been a really great resource and support for our students. We also learned that social connection and housing was an area we really needed to work on. And many of you have probably seen this across campus. And I know Dustin has seen this in his work. Students are so anxious about making friends, as he said earlier, and making those connections. They're so anxious about stepping outside of their residence hall room and trying to meet somebody across the hall. The thing that is a little bit heartbreaking about it is that everyone feels that. We can tell across these survey results that everyone wants to be able to make friends and is really anxious about making friends. And so if they tried, they would find, I think, that other people are right there with them in that anxiety and that desire to connect. It's just pulling them out of that residence hall room and helping them really be able to connect. So we also found out that financial literacy is an area that we needed to support students more. Things like learning how to manage loans or negotiate a salary or invest or save money. They're also telling us that faculty interaction on that personal level, that kind of one-on-one conversations about their goals or their individual needs is something that they're really looking for. Personalization of their experience across really all areas of campus is something that we've heard from our students that they're really interested in. And one reason among many that Nearpeer is so helpful because they can individualize their experience with Nearpeer. Opportunities to learn about self and affordable housing are also some challenges that we are looking into at Butler and that students are telling us they're kind of facing nationally as well. So one thing that we have seen about Nearpeer that has been wonderful here at Butler is that students really took to it. The top ways that Nearpeer helped new students at Butler were finding other students in their major, making friends before starting classes, again, lowering that social anxiety a little bit. And it's a really great way for them to stay informed about announcements, deadlines, events. We're constantly emailing students, right? And no one's reading their emails. So having a platform like Nearpeer, where students are actually paying attention and are active, was really helpful for us to get that important information out. It's pretty motivational to us to see that 67% of our students agreed Nearpeer helped them choose Butler over another school. And 56% of students said that the most meaningful connection they made was with someone who had similar interests and hobbies. So things that you may not get to talk about maybe in the first day of class if you're more academically focused. Nearpeer was really helping round that out with information about hobbies, interests, personal things like that. So really quickly, I did want to share that I added a question set at the end of Swiss about well-being and belonging. Like, what are the supports for well-being that we're offering that really influence students' sense of belonging? I thought we should just go ahead and ask them if we wanted to know. So I did. So you can see here that in the co-curricular responses, students really felt like being able to have the opportunity to participate in student clubs or organizations was probably the most impactful. That's 76% of our students said very much or quite a bit this influenced their sense of belonging. And you can see it kind of goes down a little bit. These were the top 5 responses. So meaningful interactions with difference, opportunities to attend events on campus, safety of campus buildings and outdoor spaces, that space again, and connecting with others in that place of residence. They're all so important to belonging. And then I also asked about some academic factors with well-being and belonging. So these are, again, folks who said that these things influence their belonging very much or quite a bit. Their courses being engaging. And faculty who take a personal interest, again, that one-on-one interaction and personal attention from faculty is really important. Feeling successful, earning high marks in their courses, and actually being able to get into the courses for their major that are required. And then opportunities to study in person with their classmates or friends were also all really important. I did notice, as I am in student affairs, that these academic ratings were a little bit higher than the co-curricular side. So that was a little bit tough to take for me as a student affairs person, but it is wonderful to know that the academic experience is so impactful to belonging. And it's really something that we can share with our academic colleagues in terms of how we can collaborate and really work together to influence the student experience, on both sides of the house. Just a little bit more. I will always say in my presentations that it is so important to disaggregate your data because the averages, which you have all just seen, can hide so much nuance. So, and I just picked one of these things, connecting with others in your place of residence, and broke it out by gender identity group. And we can see that that was more important for students who identify as men than it was for other groups of students, which is interesting, and could influence our residence life folks and how they reach out to students and making sure that they are providing support for all identities, right? I broke it out by racial identity too while I was at it, and found that nationally for our white students, they really had that connection in the place of residence was more of an influence on their belonging than it was for other groups, but not by much. So sometimes when you break out things by factors, you learn that everyone is having similar experiences, and sometimes you learn that there are real differences. So I always encourage folks to be able to do that. And last one, by class standing, and perhaps this is not a shock to anybody, but our first year students really feel that being able to connect with people where they live is largely influential on their feelings of belonging. And then it kind of tapers off from there as probably our students are making connections and don't necessarily need to connect with people in their place of residence because they've connected with people all across campus. So that is all that I have to share with you about data today. But I think that it's just so important to ask these questions and then work with your folks on campus, your students and your colleagues, to decide what it means for you on your campus, because each campus is different and the student experience varies from campus to campus. So with that, I'll turn it over to Emily.
Thank you so much, Bridget. So I just want to start out by saying how fortunate DePaul is to have access to the Swiss survey. We utilize that for our data collection, and I specifically utilize it for a lot of the outreach programming that I do at DePaul. I want to start us off with talking a little bit about what DePaul looks like, just to give a snapshot. So DePaul is a liberal arts undergraduate fully residential campus. That means students are in residence halls, they're in duplexes or Greek housing. We are in Greencastle, Indiana, and we are a Mindful College Connections member institution. So in addition to DePaul and Butler, there's also Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology and St. Mary of the Woods College. Our total enrollment for the spring of 2025 was 1,863. We are still working on collecting demographic data for this past year, but I wanted to share our 2023 to 2024 data. So again, just a snapshot. Domestic students of color were at 18%. International student enrollment was at 23%, with 25% of that being our current first year class. Thinking about Greek affiliation, we have 64% of students that are Greek affiliated. Our student athletes were at about 30%. And then with our faculty, we have 228 total, with a 9-to-1 faculty to student ratio. All right, so I wanted to share our well-being framework because it's very important as far as it guides all of the programming that I do, as well as the programming our peer educators do, which I'm going to talk about them in just a minute. All of this framework was created and it came out of the Well-Being Collaborative at DePaul. What that is it's a working group. It is full of students, faculty, and staff, and we're all working with the goal of creating initiatives to help support DePaul and the campus culture. Thinking about the definition, here's the definition that we recognize. So well-being is an optimal and dynamic state that allows people to achieve their full potential. We talk about the intersection of personal decision-making and community engagement. That results in holistic personal growth. Well-being is often described as both individual and community, and it has both subjective and objective measures. We really like to highlight that it's a shared responsibility among community members. So it's not up to just one person to help work on changing the culture of well-being. It's up to the whole campus. Thinking about the dimensions, we have 7 dimensions that we recognize at DePaul. We have academic and intellectual. We have life skills, mental and emotional, physical, sense of belonging, spiritual, and our values and meaning making dimension as well. All right, so I had mentioned that we have a mental health peer educator program. We currently have 9 mental health peer educators, and we're very excited through Mindful College Connections that we're going to be getting some MCC peer educators this fall of 2025. With our peer educator program, they utilize these 7 dimensions of well-being I just spoke about, as well as that dimension to guide a lot of the work that they do. Thinking about their requirements and involvement at DePaul, we have a weekly meeting where we check in with them, so they attend that. They also create and implement one social wellness program per semester. I've got some examples on the slide of some of the programs that they've created and what those might look like. They're very creative. They also post a weekly wellness wisdom. This is content that goes on Instagram. It's an educational post by nature, and they're also very creative and very informed as far as topics and what's the most important things that they want to address that maybe they're seeing at DePaul or nationwide. Our peer educators are really helpful in helping assist with additional outreach programming through counseling services. Two specific outreach programs, they're kind of like our signature events. We've got Day of Play in the fall, and we have the Spring Wellness Fair in the spring. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Day of Play more in just a minute. All right, so I want to start by talking about Tigers Connect, which was a really unique outreach program that we started last spring. And what this is, it's a pen pal program that really was created with the goal of helping students connect with their peers in a fun and unique way. This is in collaboration with our CARE office, which is our Concern Assessment Response Evaluation Team director. She's been so instrumental in helping students get connected with this as a resource. But students that decide that they'd like to sign up for the program are matched with a peer. This is a random matching that takes place. And although it's open to all students, we do a lot of targeted advertising for first-year students. So those that are coming to college and they're looking to find their people. But again, it's open to everybody. And I want to reinforce how important it can be for the upperclassmen to get connected and how they might still be trying to find their people too. Thinking about Tigers Connect, so after students are randomly matched with a pen pal, they are tasked with submitting letters. So they'll write a letter to their pen pal and drop it off in one of the location folders. So on this slide, I've just got an example of what that folder might look like. We have two events where students can meet in person. This is our masquerade, so the Tigers Connect masquerade. This is new in the spring, or this spring, and then the meet and greet as well. With this program, one thing that I really want to highlight is how important it can be for students to connect, while initially maybe connecting by writing letters, right? So they're not connecting in person. But we're decreasing those social pressures for them with the goal of them meeting in person eventually. So thinking again about that Tigers Connect masquerade and the meet and greet. We're giving them opportunities so that they can help establish those connections early on, using principles of universal design and really identifying how we can use a strength-based approach to this. For students that might be feeling anxious, this is also a really great program to help ease them into conversation with their peers, and as well as this masquerade and this meet and greet that we do. I just want to reference the Swiss because, again, DePaul is so fortunate to have access to the Swiss. This specifically supports that co-curricular section that Bridget was talking about, opportunities to attend events on campus. With the masquerade, it sets apart from the meet and greet in the sense students will gather together if they're in the program, and they are just going to chat with other people and try to figure out who their pen pal might be. They're going to have pseudo names that they use, so they might decide to put on a name tag. They also can put on a mask. So again, it kind of adds a sense of like mystery, and they're trying to figure out who their pen pal might be. With the meet and greet, they will actually meet in person and get to know their pen pal on a deeper level. I want to share, just before we move on, a student testimonial from this past fall. So the student said, I really enjoyed getting to connect with my peers on campus and getting to meet new people. I also enjoyed getting to form new connections and learn about someone else's college experiences. So when we think about decreasing social pressures, other ways could be through virtual chats, online platforms, and that leads us to Nearpeer. So really the big takeaway here is thinking about how student-driven connection is key. It's key to more organic building for relationships. And as many of you know, Nearpeer is an online platform with the goal of building social connections and fostering that sense of belonging. DePaul joined Nearpeer spring of 2024 thanks to Mindful College Connections. I also want to point out how important our scheduled rollout was as far as adoption goes at DePaul. So when we think about how we're going to introduce this really awesome platform to campus, we started with our incoming first years, and we wanted to start building that momentum early. So all of those students, we sent them an email through admissions, and we were like, hey, we have this really awesome new platform. We'd love to see you all join and make some new friends. So we got the first years talking. Then we started inviting some of the orientation student leaders, as well as some of the organizational, student organizational executive members. This was really helpful to continue that momentum before we invited the general student body. Thinking about first year adoption stats, so I wanted to share that 152 of our incoming fall 2024 students set up a profile in Nearpeer. That was 30% of our incoming class, which was really exciting. An average of 13 peer connections was made on Nearpeer before starting classes at DePaul, with an average of 22 interests indicated on their Nearpeer profiles. Additionally, there was an average of 28 visits to the Nearpeer app, and an average of 15 hours in Nearpeer was spent, which was 2,393 hours in total. So we were very excited to hear that our first years were enjoying Nearpeer.
And Emily, nice work for you and the team in the rollout.
Thank you.
It was great to see. Great to see.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So thinking about Nearpeer and how students can connect on deeper levels, Dustin was super kind to provide this example of a way that our students have been connecting with each other. I really like this specific example because it talks about how students can build these deep connections and micro communities. And these students in particular were talking about bonding over their favorite musicians as well as their favorite painters. So just wanted to share this quick example, as well as this one. So here is just another example of two students that are chatting about a nearby hometown and how they're building a deeper connection. And one really cool thing that I like about this conversation is it led to club and activity exploration at DePaul. So they started talking a little bit about different groups that they could join here. All right. So one really awesome thing that Nearpeer also provided us, they provided us with some top interests of our incoming students. So as an educator, I want to know what students actually want to engage in. What are they actually interested in? I always joke that I'm getting older every day, so I don't know what the kids like these days, right? I really loved this because Nearpeer let us know that dogs was #1. So we had 21% of our students say, love dogs. I said, okay, I can roll with that. And so what we did is we had Paws and Peers, which was a collaboration event with the Putnam County Humane Society. Students could come, and if they signed up for Nearpeer, we gave them some treats to feed the dog. So this was also just a really great relaxation time and a way for them to talk to their peers again in person, but also connect with peers online and set up a profile with Nearpeer. There's a picture of one of the dogs at the event. All right. So again, thinking about Nearpeer at DePaul, it's really been helpful to have as a tool for students who have been feeling isolated or lonely. It's also been really helpful for our upperclassmen. So again, thinking about juniors and seniors, they can access that platform and find their people as well. Thinking about the sustainability of the platform, one thing that I love about Nearpeer is we can continue to create groups for our students based on the needs that they've identified. So I have identified several offices at DePaul that I can connect with, and help them use Nearpeer in ways that are going to identify these needs and gaps that students have maybe brought forth to them. Just to give an example, I met with the off-campus studies director, and we talked a little bit about our students who were traveling abroad. And one of the gaps or the barriers that a lot of those students were facing is they felt very detached from their DePaul community once they left campus. And so we actually created a group together. It's our off-campus study group. But we let these students know that it's a resource and that they can get on this group and chat with other students to help stay connected. But this is something that all students can join. All right, so I want to highlight the DPU Matter podcast. This is something that was created by our mental health peer educators with the goal of providing activities that students can do with others to promote well-being. It's also helpful for providing education and resources to decrease mental health stigma and addressing a wide variety of mental health topics for awareness and advocacy efforts. So this is on Spotify. That QR code will take you there if you're interested in learning a little bit more about what those episodes look like. But I really wanted to highlight episode 3. So with permission from our peer educator, I wanted to share the emotional support animals episode. So our mental health peer educator asked 2 of their friends who had emotional support animals to come on and talk a little bit about their experience and how they were able to work with accessibility services at DePaul and what that looked like. And so I think that this podcast in particular has really just been helpful to create a culture of support across the general student body. It's helping to increase feelings of belonging as students start to feel more heard and understood by their peers. All right. So I had mentioned day of play. The big takeaway here that I really want to drive home is accessibility goes hand in hand with belonging. So as I mentioned, DePaul University as well as Butler, we're a part of the Mindful College Connections Consortium. What this consortium is it's sharing mental health resources and providing support. So I actually got day of play from College St. Mary of the Woods. So Emma, if you are on this call, I just want to give you a shout out because I loved this idea. So I don't know if you all saw the silly string of letters behind my name, but like I said, I am an occupational therapist with a background in pediatrics. So when Emma brought this idea to me and said, I think we need a whole day dedicated to students playing, I said, I love it. This is fantastic. I'm all about it. How can we make it happen? So Emma shared some of the really awesome activities that she did at St. Mary of the Woods. And I also created a few different activities. As I was creating activities, I really wanted to make sure I was, one, providing a range of different activities so that all students could engage and have fun at this event. I also wanted to make sure that each activity could be modified to meet any individual needs that maybe arose as students were wanting to engage with them. Just some examples of the activities. We had RC car racing and frisbee, Lego building, giant Jenga and checkers. We had spike ball and soccer and football. We also had some signature events. So at 3 different times during the day, we had something new and different happening. In the morning, we had shirts and yard scrabble. So students could come and get a coffee, play yard scrabble for a chance to win a day of play t-shirt. We had volleyball with Mindful College Connections. So the educators and the counselors all came together for a consortium-wide volleyball game that students could engage in. And we had a Hungry Hungry Hippo inflatable, which, as you can see, our students really enjoyed it. All right, so thinking about some of the other outreach offerings that we have, another takeaway that I want to make sure that I drive home is the importance of offering a wide range of outreach groups and programs and events that are going to benefit all students, as well as opportunities for guest speakers to connect with students and share their unique experiences. Some of the really unique support groups that we have at DePaul, I wanted to highlight our Tuesdays at 4 group. So this is collaboration with International Student Affairs. Again, all of this was created based on the data that we got from the Swiss survey. But all students are invited to participate in these programs. With Tuesdays at 4, we have about 23% of our students that are international students. This was the general group of students that attended this specific group. And out of those students from our attendance form, we found that not only were they international students, they were also first-year students. So just as an idea kind of what this group was made up of, the students that were represented. Thinking about Tuesdays at 4, I really like to talk about Nearpeer with these students because a lot of the conversations that came up during group was on homesickness and not finding their people and wanting to connect with domestic students and other students from different countries. So Nearpeer was a really cool resource that I was able to provide during this group and provide to those students. For College Hacks, this was a group that was in collaboration with DePaul Libraries and Housing and Residence Life at DePaul. College Hacks was a life skills based group. And so with College Hacks, we were specifically advertising it to first generation and first year students. Again, open to everybody, and we welcome everybody because a lot of the really awesome life skills that we talked about, everybody could benefit from. One thing that came out of College Hacks was time management consultations. So I was able to partner with our care team director, and she was really instrumental in helping get those students connected to this group, as well as those one-on-one time management consultations. Another really awesome, it was actually a program that we did, was our Supporting LGBTQIA+ Students Fair. So this was open to all faculty, students, and staff at DePaul. With this program, I asked Sweet Evening Breeze, which is a homeless shelter located in Louisville, Kentucky, to join us for a really cool presentation on microaggressions and how to be an active ally. We also had a really great tabling portion of this fair. So Sweet Evening Breeze, as well as Mental Health America, joined us. We had some on-campus partners that joined us. So thinking about LGBTQ+ services at DePaul, Center for Spiritual Life, the Women and Gender Sexualities Department joined us, the Women's Center, and then our LGBTQ+ identity-based student organization. So this was a really great way for our campus to come together and just talk about a lot of different important topics and connect on a deeper level. Okay, so I mentioned some of these takeaways as I was going through the slides, but I wanted to provide them all in one place and go over them one more time because I think that this is super important to keep in mind as we think about outreach and planning all of our really awesome events this upcoming academic year. So what should we keep in mind? Decreasing social pressures associated with meeting someone for the first time can help us work toward that goal of in-person interactions during outreach. So thinking about Tigers Connect. Student-driven communication is key to more organic relationship building, thinking about our virtual connections and how those can help us to reduce and decrease social pressures, thinking about Nearpeer, thinking about the students that maybe have anxiety and that connecting on that level can be a lot helpful as far as building up to those in-person interactions. Peer-led well-being advocacy efforts and education help to create a culture of support across the general student body, which is really ultimately increasing feelings of belonging and students feeling more heard and understood by their peers. So thinking about our mental health peer educator program and how they have that really awesome DPU Matter podcast. We talked about accessibility and how that goes hand in hand with belonging for all students, thinking about day of play and offering a wide range of activities and ways that students can engage in an outreach event. And finally, just making sure to offer a wide range of outreach programs across the entire semester, those that are going to benefit all students, as well as opportunities to connect with those guest speakers and share unique experiences. So I shared a little bit about those drop-in support outreach groups that we have, as well as that really awesome supporting LGBTQ plus students event. All right, and then as we wrap up and we can answer some questions, if there are any questions that maybe we don't get to or you think of later, please don't hesitate to send myself or Bridget an email. We're happy to help.
That's terrific, Emily. Thank you so much. And Bridget, and I saw Bridget was answering a number of questions in the chat, which is terrific. Any ones, Bridget, that you would like to call out?
There was a question about just what we had seen since a lot of the changes to diversity, equity, and inclusion rules and what we can do, what we had seen for students on campus. And I have only anecdotal information to share about that, which is probably similar to what folks are seeing across this call. But I'm looking forward to being able to have more data behind that next year when I run Swiss again. My survey season's closed right now, so it's just the anecdotal stress and anxiety about just not knowing what's going to happen. The unknown is rough, and I think one thing that Nearpeer really helps our incoming students with is lessening that unknown a little bit, because you're already making connections. So I'm not aware of our students using Nearpeer as a connecting tool during this time for this topic. But I wonder if folks could, and I think it could be a really good space for folks to be able to connect over their shared feelings of just not knowing what's going on.
Yeah, we've seen some of that.
Yeah.
It's a great point, Bridget. And in other cases, we've seen institutions trying to figure out how to sort of future-proof their strategy with the executive orders, and also some sort of detail still to be worked out. And so certainly from our perspective and serving all students and public institutions in states that have already had similar policies at a state level, we know that we're compliant, and at least it's some point of stability for those, and with so much else that is changing, and to support student needs that in some cases might grow as other programs go away.
There was a question about sharing the Swiss survey. That was the QR code, but I will grab a link for you as well.
Would you like me to put that back up as well?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll put that in the chat.
Perfect.
And folks are able to get a ton of information just from that site. But of course, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to chat one-on-one.
That's great. And I think you've answered all of the questions, Bridget and Emily. So thank you again to both of you for taking the time to share your thoughts here, and amidst also being busy on the presentation circuit, sharing so much of this important information around the country. And thank you to all of the participants who joined us to learn more. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and we'll also send out a recording of the webinar as well for everyone to be able to have. And with that, we'll wrap it up. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bridget. Thanks, Emily.